Hey everybody, welcome to Jacob's Quest, and today I just saw Black Widow, the Marvel movie that was supposed to come out at the beginning of last year. So this is going to be a full spoiler review, and if you haven't seen the movie yet, go ahead and watch that. You can rent it for $30, or not rent it, get premiere access for $30 on Disney Plus, or go see it in the theater, which is what I did. I went and saw it in an actual movie theater, which was the second time I've been in a theater. I saw A Quiet Place too, like a month ago, but that was the second time I've been in a theater in like a year and a half, and it feels good to go back. So you know, maybe there's gonna be a little bit of bias towards this movie because like I'm back in a movie theater. You know, here's what I'm gonna say before I like really get into this movie. I feel like this is the best place to start. For all Marvel movies, the reason that Marvel is so successful, it's not because every single movie is like this amazing, epic, game-changing, amazing thing that everyone's gonna love, right? It's because there is, at the very least, a baseline of quality consistency. What I mean is, even the worst Marvel movies are fine. They're not like, you know, the worst Marvel movie is still better than most of the Fox X-Men movies or the Fantastic Four movies, or, you know, some of the earlier, like, you know, the Ben Affleck Daredevils, you know, that whole era beginning of superhero movies. The worst Marvel movie is still better than pretty much all of those. So that is, to me at least, is the reason why Marvel is so successful, is because there is a baseline of quality that they have never dipped like downwards from that. So to say that, I think that every single Marvel movie can be put into two camps, you know, just to generalize everything. There are the Marvel movies that are these great, amazing game changers that you feel the urge to watch on their own. Just, you know, you're like, you know what, I want to watch Infinity War again, or I want to go watch Winter Soldier or Guardians of the Galaxy again, and you just put it on and you're like, man, that was a great movie. And then there's the other Marvel movies that, while they're not bad, they're definitely the ones that you watch them when you're trying to do a whole marathon of everything. You know, when you're trying to go back and watch all the Marvel movies in chronological order, those are the ones you watch there, you know. And to me, Black Widow is definitely in that second corner. It's not a bad movie by any means. There's a lot of great things here, but throughout the entire thing, it could not escape the fact that, well, one, this Black Widow movie should have been made before Infinity War, probably even earlier than that, in the MCU. They waited way too long to give this character a movie. That's the first thing, and they couldn't really escape that fact. Because, you know, looming over the whole thing is the fact that you know already what happens past this point. You know that she dies. You know that she seemingly never gets to reunite with all the characters that we meet in this movie. You know, so the movie couldn't really escape that. The second thing, of course, is that because of that, there is somewhat of a feeling of inconsequentialness to it. I don't know if that's the right word to say, but also that a lot of this is retroactive continuity. You know, the whole backstory here with this fake family, and then she went to Russia and freed these people, and she did all of this before helping Steve Rogers free the Avengers from the raft, or whatever that prison was in Civil War. You know, you can't help but be like, okay, well, clearly they're setting these other characters up so that they can go somewhere after this, and they're just kind of retroactively saying like, oh no, they had this whole adventure and they were part of her whole backstory, and all of this was like a thing. It was just never mentioned or brought up. And you know, I want to say there's even a part in Endgame where maybe I'm wrong, but I want to say there's even a part where she's like, oh yeah, the Avengers were my family and now I don't have anybody. But of course this whole movie sets up that she has this whole other family, and then, you know, so there's things that this movie, in my brain at least, it couldn't escape some very basic facts of, one, this movie should have been made much earlier than it did, and even then it was supposed to have been released last year and it wasn't. So we've already seen WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier, and we'll get back to Falcon and Winter Soldier and how this all ties into that. And just the fact that a lot of this stuff is retroactive continuity, you know, which is fine. This is not the first time Marvel's done this. This is like the 5th time they've, you know, done like a semi prequel to something else and said like, no, this was totally a thing the whole time. You know, it's fine. But it is kind of in the back of my mind the whole time when I'm watching it. I'm like, well, I know she lives past this point, and I know that character is going to become the next Black Widow, basically, and you know, you kind of just know all of this. So what this movie has going for it is a lot of actually pretty great action. I'll say that immediately, is that like when they're fighting, especially when Black Widow meets her sister for the first time as an adult in this movie, they have a pretty epic fight, and it's actually really awesome. A lot of the action works in this movie. It's pretty great. And the humor as well, especially when they rescue the Red Guardian from jail, and he adds so much humor to this, because some of this goes to some pretty dark subject matter, and I feel like they were able to like handle that really well. You know, he even makes this big joke about like, oh, you two have murdered so many people, I'm so proud of you, you know. And I do really appreciate her backstory, you know, the fact that they had like this fake family for 3 years, and they were like this sleeper cell in America, but then they had to go back because the whole mission was just to steal some, you know, brain scanning technology or something. You know, I really enjoyed that, you know, and I feel like that's when this movie's at its strongest, is when it's the family all together and they have those scenes talking about their past and all of that. And the action, of course, and the comedy, and that all works. Even Taskmaster, which I gotta talk about Taskmaster. So, okay, this is not a character that I have some kind of deep relationship with. You know, I've never even read a comic where Taskmaster is in. You know, like, and I've said this before, when it comes to actual comic books, I am much more on the DC comics than Marvel comics. You know, you can ask me a million questions about DC, I could probably answer most of them. Marvel, I know like the basics, you know, like I've read some Marvel, but not a whole lot. So Taskmaster is not a character that I'm attached to. And there is this big reveal in this movie that I think for this movie, and especially for me as someone who has never been attached to this character, it worked. It worked really well. But there are some people upset online, so we're just gonna go ahead and go into it. Taskmaster is revealed to be Dreykov's daughter. Now, we heard of Dreykov's daughter from the first Avengers. Loki was kind of taunting Natasha about it, like, oh, you murdered Dreykov's daughter. And it turns out, and we see this flashback, and it's actually pretty goddamn dark. Basically, in order for her to leave the Red Room and Russia and all that stuff, and to join S.H.I.E.L.D., she had to help them assassinate this Dreykov guy who is behind this whole Red Room experiment, right? And basically they got his daughter, his little, like, probably 10 years old daughter, to basically go in this building, signal that, like, okay, your dad is here, right? He's in the room. And she gave the signal, and they're like, okay, blow up the building, which means like they basically sacrificed the little girl in order to get to the general. And that was how she joined S.H.I.E.L.D., which immediately I'm like, okay, so S.H.I.E.L.D., you know, obviously Hydra was like part of S.H.I.E.L.D. and like in secret, but like Hawkeye and Nick Fury, like, they knew about this mission, definitely. This is kind of fucked up, you know? So now I'm definitely questioning Nick Fury and Hawkeye even more. Like, did you guys all go in together and sacrifice someone's little girl? Like, was this part of the plan? What the fuck? Anyways, so yeah, that's got me questioning those two guys now. Anyways, so that is like her big dark secret that she's always been ashamed of, was killing Dreykov's daughter, for, you know, sacrificing her for the mission. And it's turned out that she is alive, and she's been like brainwashed, and she has computer chips in her brain, and she is now Taskmaster, and she is capable of mimicking anybody. And she's really cool. All the fight scenes are really cool. I love that, like, the big reveal worked. There was a couple of red herrings. Like, she has Black Widow has this friend who gets her supplies, who gets a lot of screen time for seemingly no reason. I don't know. They focused so much on this character who's just like her friend who gets her planes and helicopters when she needs it. I don't understand why they gave this character so much time. As far as I'm aware, he's not supposed to like be anyone from the comics. He's not like a main character of any kind, but they like focused on him so much. It was pretty strange, I think. Anyways, but people are mad about Taskmaster because in the comics, Taskmaster is his own character and I guess has a lot more of a personality, whereas here, Taskmaster is essentially the Terminator. He's very robotic, or she's very robotic, and doesn't have any speaking lines at all. I think maybe talks like once, maybe. And yeah, that's it. So this is not gonna be the last time we see this version of Taskmaster. She's basically brought back to the good side. The brainwashing is undone mostly, and she's alive by the end. So we'll see this character again, hopefully with more development, because again, she has maybe one spoken line in the whole movie and she's basically a robot for the whole thing. So that was interesting. It worked story-wise for me. Like, it gave Natasha a reason to care about this person. Like, oh, this is that little girl I thought I had murdered, and I kind of owe her the chance to try and save her now. So that makes sense, but I understand why people are upset. I was upset at the Mandarin thing when they like, oh, it's not really the Mandarin, it's just an actor. I was kind of upset about that because I knew who the Mandarin was supposed to be. So, the whole twists, changing the character into something that it's not really. I understand people being upset, but for me, this Taskmaster worked. It made sense for the story, and I can see that that's why they did it. So I think this is much better than the whole Mandarin situation. I'll say that. But yeah, overall, this movie, it's clearly a setup for what comes later, and it can never fully escape the idea that a lot of this is just a retcon, and it's not entirely a necessary movie. It feels like a lot of this could have just been set up in some other Disney Plus show. And at the end credit sequence, we see Yelena, I think that's her name, Florence Pugh's character. Basically, she is now working for Val, who we met in Falcon and Winter Soldier. And Val is clearly setting up some sort of Dark Avengers or something, some sort of team, because she also recruited US Agent. So something's being set up there. I don't know if it's going to play out in the Hawkeye show, because she gives her a target to go after Hawkeye, blaming him for Black Widow's death, because the after credits sequence is now post Endgame. Which even that I'm kind of questioning, like how could anyone possibly know that Hawkeye was involved in Black Widow's death? They were literally time traveling to the year 2014 in an alternate timeline where she died there. How could anyone have this information? I guess that's my thing, is like, how would you even know that he was involved? I don't know. Anyways, overall, the movie's fine. I think I like this one. I think I had a better time with this one than I did Captain Marvel, or maybe even, it's better than Thor: The Dark World. It's better than Captain Marvel. It's better than like some of the ones that people usually put at the bottom tier of Marvel movies. And I can see myself watching this, a few more times, and obviously during like marathons when I try to like do the whole chronological rewatch. But it's definitely not up there in the the top half of the MCU movies. We have over 20 of these things, so it feels like we kind of just have to segment these into two giant chunks, the bottom half and the top half. But yeah, it was fine. It had its own issues going in, that because they waited so long to even make this movie, it was kind of unavoidable. Like I don't see how they could have avoided, like, we know what happens to her. They should have made this movie a long time ago. They should have tried to set all of this up years earlier. You know, we should have gotten this like in 2017 or something. And I guess that's still just my main issue with it, is just that Marvel is so good at setting things up for the future. They're so good at planting the seeds and then having them pay off 2, 3, 4 movies down the road. But this one was like a retroactive planting of the seed. You know, they're like, oh no, this stuff was totally here the whole time and it'll be paid off later. But it's like, oh, but you're kind of faking it though. It wasn't really all there. You're only just now deciding that you wanted all of this to have been planted earlier. You know, so I guess that's my main thing. But yeah, there's a lot of chatter online. Of course, there's always going to be people going like, oh, this movie's horrible, it's the worst thing in the world, which is very strange. I think it's just an internet thing at this point, where any movie comes out, whether it's a Marvel or a Star Wars or a DC, someone somewhere, some group of people is going to be convinced that it is the monstrosity of filmmaking, which is just silly. This movie's fine. It's fine. It has its own problems. Not everything works. It had a lot of hurdles to get over, but there's a lot to enjoy here. So it's like, if you want to just see some action and some funny stuff, and you want to at least get some little crumbs of what might be coming later, there you go. It's, yeah, like, this is what you want, right? Yeah, I'm definitely, you know, far more looking forward to the Spider-Mans and the Doctor Stranges and, you know, all this other stuff coming on later this year and early next year. But yeah, this was fine. It just, you know, I really wish that I lived in that universe, that other timeline, where this was a 2017 movie. I think that's my main thing. This would have been amazing if it was 2017. But yeah. Anyways, let me know what you guys think about Black Widow. Let me know how you guys feel. Are you upset about the Taskmaster thing? And is this in your bottom half of Marvel or in your top half of Marvel? Yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.